Good evening. We welcome you to the concert tonight. This is our what's become an annual joint concert with the Palmyra-Eagle Community Band, and it's we combine the talents of the musicians from both groups, and we've got a problem tonight that I love. It took us a while logistically to find enough space and get enough chairs for everybody up here, so I'd love to have that problem every week, but we are very happy to have them here. This originally started a few years ago, I believe, due to efforts of the people that are in our band and in the Palmyra-Eagle band, which, to my understanding, is Deb and Bernie Gilbert and Carl Getch. Was there anybody else? No, that was, okay. My understanding was pretty close. That's good. It's been received well by the band members themselves. They have fun getting together. We went over to Palmyra the other night for practice and had a little social hour afterwards, so that was fun. And I think in the past, I understand the audiences have been receptive to this as well. You're going to notice it's a fuller sound, and it's going to be a great sound. I'm looking forward to this. The directing duties tonight are going to be shared by Ed Pierce. He's over here, sitting ignoring me and refusing to stand up and take a bow, but no. Ed has been the director of the Palmyra-Eagle Community Band since 1994. His professional career has been in music education, and he continues to work as a school band director part-time. And if there's additional details, I'm going to let Ed fill those in for you when he speaks with you. Before we begin, I want to thank our sponsors tonight, the Lake Mills Rotary Club, which is providing free bottled water to interested people. I was interested, I grabbed one. The Lake Mills Area Community Foundation, the Tyronita Brewery and Timber Creek Pizza, and the Lake Mills Main Street program, who will be providing root beer floats for all of you tonight. I believe the root beer floats are back in the shelter over there where the Rotary sign is, the Rotary Club sign, so please partake of that. But you probably want to leave a few for the band members at the end. So. All right, so we really do appreciate the support of these sponsors, the groups and donors that we've had that help us to keep doing what we're doing, so we thank you for that. Tonight, we're going to open with the piece we always open with, one of Irving Berlin's most recognized pieces, God Bless America. Well, we've already played one song, so we need to take a little break here to rest for a minute. Oh, I'm just kidding. Now, we're going to take a few moments tonight to recognize and honor a very strong supporter of the Lake Mills City Band, both during her lifetime and in providing a generous legacy to the band at her passing. I'd like to invite Carol Burrows, is here, yeah, right down here, to come up and to the stage at this time and say a few words regarding Betty Breikright's ward.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you all for coming. This is a really special night for the Ward family, and I think for a lot of Betty's friends that may remember her. She was a Breikright's that grew up on Milton Street here in Lake Mills. She was a member of the class of 1942 high school graduating class. And that class absolutely loved coming to the alumni banquets and having gatherings as much as they could. They partied and partied. Betty's love of music came from her family, and tonight she has family all over these first couple of rows. She has family that came from Fort Atkinson, Baraboo, Spring Green, wherever else, because the love of music has translated for them part of that whole family kind of thing. Betty was the secretary at the, pardon me, I think my allergies are kicking in. Betty was the secretary at the school that I taught at in Fort Atkinson, which is how I met her actually. And she immediately said, "Oh, Lake Mills, I know all about Lake Mills, I love it." And she did. She grew up on the street that happened to be next to John Neipert's parents. And Betty actually babysat John Neipert. Now, many of you who are not Lake Mills people will say, "Who's that?" Well, John also has a legacy in Lake Mills. He was one of our attorneys here in Lake Mills a very, very long time, very supportive of the community. Betty met her husband, actually, when she was a young person working at Woodland Beach here in Lake Mills. And some of the memories that I have of Betty are when she would do things at school that all the kids loved her because she knew all of their names in a school of 500 students. She knew whose parents, who to call if somebody got hurt, who to do this or who to do that, and always, always the music. She had gotten music, especially some of the bells for our music department so that everybody could enjoy them. I just wrote a couple of things. I don't want to keep this long because I know we have this wonderful music coming. But I think Betty's legacy not only is how she helped us restore and renovate the bandstand, but the generations that have come after her and will continue that music. And because we have been able to have this bandstand all fixed up with the help of many, many people, Betty's help, though, and enthusiasm, until she was here for some of the concerts last year. Kiki would bring her over and she would have her foot going. She'd be sitting in her wheelchair and her foot would be going. She was just, always that music was the important part for her. So thank you so much for allowing me to tell you some of the background and why she was special, even if you didn't know her. Think of her when you see all of the bands that come and enjoy the renovated bandstand, partly because of Betty. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. We're going to continue now with some of that band music that Betty loved. Carl King is a composer that is well known in the band world. He was largely a self-taught musician who bought his first instrument, a cornet, with money he made from a paper route. And he left the 8th grade, after 8th grade, and the only music instruction he had was a few lessons he got from a person in Canton, Ohio. So given that background, it's amazing what he went on to do. He composed marches, pieces, probably the most famous circus march of all, Barnum and Bailey's favorite. And 2 weeks ago, we played the last piece that he composed, the last march, Hometown Boy March, which was in honor of Mike Body, a hometown boy who spent 60 years with our city band. Tonight, we're going to play one of his first marches that he wrote early in his career in 1920. This is Hosts of Freedom.
If you see a couple dancing periodically down in front of the bandstand, Josh and Caitlin Voigt are the dancers for the Palmyra-Eagle Community Band. You guys want to stand up and wave at folks so that they know who you are? They've appeared at our joint concerts in past years. It started a number of years ago when I put out a call. We needed dancers for our 40s show, and we were doing a number of them that year, and they answered the call, and they have been a regular staple with us, and we really, really appreciate what they bring to our concert presentation. 62 years ago, the face of Broadway changed forever. 2 musicals. 2 seminal events in the history of Broadway. One show was called West Side Story, the other one was called The Music Man. You could not find 2 different shows if you worked hard at it for the next 100 years. West Side Story dealt with the the clash of cultures and urban violence. And we heard a lot about Leonard Bernstein last year during his centennial year. Meredith Willson, on the other hand, wrote lovingly and longingly of an America and hometown that maybe it existed, maybe it didn't, but it certainly did in his mind. And he painted a beautiful portrait of small-town America at the turn of the century and the wonderful growth of what happens when music touches a community such as Harold Hill brought to the town of River City. It was a big run that year for the Tony Awards. The Tony Awards are the Oscars for Broadway, and the show that won as Best Musical was The Music Man. However, the Music Man winning does not diminish either show. You've all heard music from both of these before. Tonight it's our privilege and our pleasure to bring a medley of The Music Man. And that show continues to be performed. Right now, there's a long-term run of The Music Man wrapping up in Chicago at the famous Goodman Theater. They're doing a wonderful production of The Music Man. So here we are with Wells Fargo Wagon, Till There Was You, and 76 trombones. Right on it, folks. Have fun.
Sounds like we have competition. Does somebody know how it's open? Just when you were starting to get used to it. All right, continuing on. When we think of marches, who do we think of? John Philip Sousa, probably. Washington Post, Stars and Stripes Forever. Those are his most famous marches, but one we're going to play tonight may not be quite as famous, but Sousa considered it one of his best. The Invincible Eagle was written, according to a Sousa band member, on a train between Buffalo and New York City in 1901. The march was dedicated to the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, the World's Fair at the time. And here it is, the Invincible Eagle. I think I'll be taking a bow at the end of the songs over on that side. There's not much space left over here. I don't know. Maybe in the flower bed. We're going to continue now. This is the part of the evening that I'm sure you were all looking forward to. It's called audience participation. So, we've done this once before, and it was so popular because I could tell because people were not running to their cars. They were only walking. But we can do this the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is we do it the first time. The hard way is, well, the third or fourth time you finally, no, I'm just kidding. This is a song that you know, as you've heard before, Minnie the Moocher is from 1931. It's a Cab Calloway piece. If any of you saw, and I'm sure a number of you did, see the Blues Brothers movie back in 1980 or 81, Cab Calloway appeared in this and did this. He was the janitor in the school, and suddenly he appeared in Tales and sang this song, which you're going to be, you don't have tails, but you're going to be doing what Cab did tonight. This is Minnie the Moocher with some scat singing, and it's Heidi, 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 ho, and it's call and response. I'll go, and the band members will be going, Heidi, 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 ho, and you go, Heidi, Heidi. All right, I don't want to wear you out. That you got the idea. All right, good. One on a part playing, and then the others are singing. Somebody move that song. Give you four. 1, 2, 1.
We're going to do Singin' in the Rain right now. Do you remember who the three principal stars were of Singin' in the Rain? Gene Kelly, Donald O'Connor, come on, Debbie Reynolds. Age 19, never danced before. You watch her dance moves in that film, you'd swear that she had been hoofing for 10 years prior to that filming. She absolutely stepped up to the plate and just held her own with that entire professional company that pulled off that magnificent movie. Now I have a magnificent piece of equipment I'm going to introduce, and Kathy is going to explain what this is and how important it is for our next selection.
If you don't know what this is, it's a rain stick. And it's going to be the solo instrument for Singin' in the Rain.
84 is not up tempo. It's going to be a slower tempo when we get to 84. 84 will be slow. Here we go. Have fun. Okay, Beach Boys. Watch on this one. A lot of tempo changes. Watch. Keep an eye on the stick, please. Here we go. I'm just going to keep it simple because I want you watching these magnificent dancers. Ladies and gentlemen, music by the Beach Boys. Josh and Caitlin Voigt, outstanding. Wow.
All right. We're going to continue now with a piece that I've called musical onomatopoeia. You all remember onomatopoeia from English class, right? The word that sounds like and looks like what you're describing, like splash or babble or warble or, of course, my favorite, belch. Those are all onomatopoeia, but we, yeah. This is a piece that was written early part of the 20th century, but it was used by Walt Disney in a silly symphony in 1931, one of the cartoons. It's called In a Clock Store, and it has musical description of life in a clock store, an old clock store. There's no quartz and batteries and stuff. The clocks are running down, they get wound up again. You're going to hear different chimes, alarm clocks, things like that. But this is called In a Clock Store, and it's going to give you clock sounds from cuckoo clocks to alarm clocks. So here we go.
Take the repeat on second-hand rows. We're going to go back to Broadway a long time before West Side Story or The Music Man. We're going to go back to the 1920s. A great impresario on the Great White Way, his name was Florenz Ziegfeld. And he created a thing called the Ziegfeld Follies. It was to glorify the American girl, everything in terms of a positive way that a showman could do that kind of thing. It was an all-American, family-friendly presentation that brought forth just a whole lot of American entertainers. W.C. Fields, Will Rogers, Eddie Cantor, and the subject of our next selection, Fanny Brice. Today we go to Lady Gaga, perhaps Madonna, but back in the 20s, the leading vocalist at that time, pop vocalist, was Fanny Brice. She was also a good comedian in her own way. She frequently sang this as a sort of unofficial theme song for her presentation with the Ziegfeld Follies, Second Hand Rose. Now we'll flash forward ahead to 1968, and a motion picture is being made of her life, of Fanny Brice's life. It's called Funny Girl. It's from a Broadway show from a little earlier in the 60s. And the song Second Hand Rose comes out once again, and this time it becomes a #2 hit, just right behind Streisand's great, tremendous hit out of that show, People. So here is Fanny Brice, the Ziegfeld Follies, and Second Hand Rose. At the time of the emergence of the Great American Circus, there was another entertainment that was coming forth in this country too. It was called the Wild West Show. Guys like Pawnee Bill and Buffalo Bill were taking the American West east to people who had not ever seen a cowboy or even a horse unless it was in front of a trolley car. What Buffalo Bill and Pawnee Bill did was to assemble large shows that were put on at county fairgrounds, huge stadium areas. And what Buffalo Bill did was he called it the Congress of Rough Riders. And off on the end of that vast expanse where they were going to put on the Wild West show, bursting through the gates would be 100 flag bearers galloping on horseback, going around and around the track. Off on the side is the Buffalo Bill Cowboy Band playing stirring marches. Next would come the stagecoach, and next would come the wagon trains, and next would come the great Sioux Indians. And with Buffalo Bill's case, he actually, after the Sioux Wars, actually hired Chief Sitting Bull, and Sitting Bull toured with Buffalo Bill for a number of years to great success. Then would come the U.S. Cavalry, and then would come the U.S. Marshals, and then would come the bad guys trying to pull a holdup on the stagecoach. Not only was the Wild West show wildly successful in this country, it toured Europe many, many times. The Wild West was brought to people who had no idea what cowboys and Indians and cavalry and stagecoach and wagon trains were all about. This was a huge entertainment, a tremendous undertaking, and it's certainly fallen away from view over the years. But we have a wonderful legacy of photographs, stills, and certainly the literature of the great Buffalo Bill Cowboy Band. So here is the kind of thing as the announcer would probably introduce. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Buffalo Bill proudly presents the Congress of Rough Riders. Remember, it's in one. No more Mr. Nice Guy. Bum, bum, ready, go!
All right. We go from Buffalo Bill to a little circus music to end, but before we end, there's a few things I wanted to say. Thank yous to make. First, I want to thank Ed and Ed Pierce and the Palmyra-Eagle Community Band for sharing the concert with us tonight. This, as I said before, we've got a problem here. We don't have enough space in this bandstand. I love this problem. I would love this problem every week, but it's really, I've been told this was a good concert, that the bands both have a lot of fun, and I believe it, because now I've experienced it, and it's great. I hope we keep doing this for many years. Having this many talented musicians together all at once, playing these pieces was a real treat for me, and I'm sure for Ed too, so this is fun. And I'd like to thank our sponsors as they do each concert. The Lake Mills Rotary Club and their bottled water that they provided, the Lake Mills Area Community Foundation, the Tyranina Brewery and Timber Creek Pizza for the root beer floats that are being distributed by the Lake Mills Main Street program. You should, if you haven't gotten one, you should head over there to get a root beer float. And although we appreciate our audience at every concert, this is a good night to mention how much we appreciate you, since this is Audience Appreciation Night for us. So thank you for being here. It's very gratifying for all of us to have all of you out there when we're playing. We really appreciate it, so thank you. One more, well, actually two more, because you know the one we'll end with, but so that's what. We're sure to get a standing ovation with that one, because, All right, before we do that one, though, Henry Fillmore was another composer from the 19th, early 20th century who composed a lot of music for circuses. Tonight we're going to play what he considered to be his best march. He premiered it with his Cincinnati band in 1928. He didn't even have a name for it yet. But when it was published in 1929, he had a title. It's called Americans We, and he dedicated it to all of us. So to all of us tonight, we're going to close with Americans We. Remember when I go like this, I'm not waving. Thank you. Would you please rise now and join us in our national anthem? While you're getting up. We have our last concert next week, a week from tonight. That'll be right here, and we'll be our last summer concert. We'll be having some concerts around the holiday season, but the concert next week, I know you're going to be on the edge of your seats. The concert next week will be determined by the vote of the band members. We're going to be playing the greatest hits from this summer as selected by our band. So hope to see you there next week.